All right, today we're going to decode a hidden language. It's a language that is literally all around you, all the time. It's the language of symbols, and I promise, once you learn to read it, you are never going to see the world in the same way again.
Okay, let's start with something you see every day. This little guy, right? You probably click it, dozens of times a day without even thinking about it. But that one simple tap, it means approval, it means connection, it's even a kind of social currency. All of that is packed into this one tiny image. Wild, right?
Or how about this one? For so many people, this is way more than just a piece of colored cloth. It's a symbol that can stir up these incredibly powerful feelings. Identity, pride, a sense of history and belonging. It just carries this massive emotional weight.
And then there's this. Come on, you know this one. It's not just some random checkmark, is it? Nope. It stands for a giant global brand. It brings to mind ideas of being an athlete, of success. It represents this huge web of products and advertising. It's a symbol of both commerce and culture, all at once.
So, the big question is, how? How do these ridiculously simple images have so much power over how we think, how we feel, and what we do? Well, it turns out there's actually a science to it. There's a way to crack the code.
And that brings us to our topic today. The field that gives us the tools for this decoding job? It's called semiotics. Basically, you can just think of it as the study of signs and symbols, and more importantly, how they actually create meaning in the first place.
Yeah, semiotics is kind of like the ultimate decoder ring for culture. It was developed by some really brilliant thinkers back in the early 20th century, and it all boils down to one core idea. Things don't just have meaning on their own. Nope. Meaning is something we create, as a society, by using these systems of signs.
So what's really interesting is that the guys who founded this field had slightly different takes on it. You had Ferdinand de Saussure, who saw signs as a simple two-part deal. You've got the form and you've got the concept. But for what we're talking about today, we're going to lean on the bigger three-part model from a philosopher named Charles Sanders Peirce. His model includes the object itself, the sign that represents it, and, this is the crucial part, the meaning that gets created inside your mind. This is what really helps us see that meaning isn't just there, it's actively being built.
And this right here, this is the core toolkit that Peirce gave us. It's brilliant. He broke signs down into three main types. First, you have the icon. Think of a photograph. It actually looks like the thing it represents. Super simple. Then you have the index. This is something like smoke, which points directly to a fire. There's a real physical connection. And finally, you have the symbol. This is where it gets interesting. A symbol, like a flag or even the words I'm speaking right now, has no natural connection to what it means. Its meaning only exists because we, as a group, have all agreed that it does.
Okay, so now that we have this toolkit, let's actually put it to work. We're going to apply these ideas to a really fascinating and kind of high-stakes academic debate. This will show us how meaning gets built, not just in, ads and logos, but in the world of big ideas.
So our case study revolves around the work of a scholar named Bruce Lincoln. He's a historian of religion, and what he did was, he took all the analytical tools he usually used on ancient texts and turned them back onto his own field, onto scholarship itself. And the results were pretty explosive.
Okay, so here's Lincoln's first big argument. He says that ancient myths, they aren't just fun little stories. Not at all. He argues they are incredibly powerful narratives, carefully built to make a specific ideology, a particular group's way of seeing the world and their power structure, seem totally natural, like it's just the way things are, inevitable, and true.
But then, he takes it a step further with an even more provocative claim. He argues that modern academic writing, scholarship, works in the exact same way. He's saying that all that evidence, all those arguments and footnotes, they aren't just there to find some objective truth. They're also being used to build a specific narrative that supports a particular ideology. Whoa.
Now, as you can probably guess, not everyone was on board with that idea. A critic named David Gordon White reviewed Lincoln's book, and while he definitely gave Lincoln credit for being brilliant, he also pointed out three big problems with his argument.
So White lays out his critique in three pretty clear parts. First, he says Lincoln's core ideas aren't really all that new. Second, he argues that Lincoln's understanding of power is a little too black and white. And third, and this is a big one, he suggests that Lincoln's whole approach could actually have some pretty dangerous consequences out in the real world.
Let's zoom in on that second point for a minute, the one about misreading power.
White's argument is that Lincoln's view tends to paint history as this simple story of, Western aggressors and non-Western victims. But White pushes back, saying, hang on, it's way more complicated than that. He gives the example of Indian elites who were using their own ancient myths as tools for dominance for centuries before the British even showed up. It was an active grab for their own power, not just some passive reaction to colonialism.
And this brings us to White's final, and maybe most urgent point. He's basically sounding an alarm. He warns that when academics just retreat into their own little world and only criticize each other, they're giving up their important job of helping the public make sense of culture. And that leaves a vacuum that gets filled, and fast, by modern-day demagogues, political figures who invent their own myths, pass them off as history, and use them for their own political gain.
So, what does this whole academic throwdown between two really smart guys mean for us, right here, right now? Well, it shows that this semiotics toolkit we've been talking about isn't just for analyzing dusty old books. It's for decoding the hidden machinery of power and meaning that's running in our own world today.
And look, whether you want to call them myths or ideology in narrative form, the point is they're absolutely everywhere. Think about it. An advertising slogan? It's not just trying to sell you a product. It's selling you a whole identity. A political campaign? It's never just about policy. It's about weaving a story of who we are as a nation. The truth is, we are constantly swimming in an ocean of these symbolic stories.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Meaning isn't set in stone. It's built. It's constructed, piece by piece, using signs, icons, indexes, and especially symbols. All the stories we're told, from ancient myths all the way to the memes on your phone, are incredibly powerful systems for shaping our reality. Once you get that, you can start to see the hidden architecture of belief that's all around you. Which of course brings us to the final big question. Now that you have this toolkit, I want you to take a look around. Look at the stories you're told, the symbols you follow, and the things you just accept as normal. And ask yourself, what myths are you living by?